Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today on this webinar. I know we're all managing this crazy event, this crisis right now, and I wanted to bring with you guys some insight, some ways that we have learned over the years to manage some of these different problems that we're having right now. So, if you're anything like me, you're wondering, when is the phone going to start ringing like it normally does at the end of March, beginning of April? And we've had some few calls here at Master Plan, but they've definitely not been the usual amount that we normally see. Also, I'm sure if you're like us, we have a lot of designs out, a lot of clients that are excited about doing projects, but they don't know what to do next. They're kind of sitting in limbo, kind of in this design purgatory, not sure what's coming up next. So they're maybe planning, but not necessarily pulling the trigger on those big ticket projects. So, that's a bit of a problem for business. And I, wanted to chat a little bit about today about some little key insights in order to be able to help those people along. Also, it's when we think about normal, like I've been talking to a lot of people and they say, look, when are things going to go back to normal? I just wanted to go back to the way they were a few weeks ago. And unfortunately, I have bad news for you. It's never going to go back to the way it was a few weeks ago. We're going to have what I like to call the new normal. It's the new normal of how the world's going to work now. How things are going to be different, how people are going to interact with things. So, the cool part about our industry is that when people are stuck in their houses in lockdown, they have the opportunity to walk around and see the different parts of their property that they like and don't like. And this gives them the opportunity to slow life down a little bit and take a little bit of a kind of a back seat in the craziness of life and to sense what they do and don't like about space, especially their outdoor space. Again, we're in springtime now, so it's important that they get outside and run around and they see what they like and don't like. And right now is a good time for planning. So just keep that in mind as a little silver lining in all of this. But today, I want to introduce myself. My name is Joshua Gillow. I've been in this business for over 24 years now. I love outdoor living. I grew up in a garden center since my mother and father started that when I was 5 years old. At that point, I realized I wanted to make some extra money, because we didn't get paid in the garden center. So I went around collecting different rocks I found in fields and brought them up in my little red wagon to my parents' customers and offered them for a few pennies, and people started buying them. So I got excited and I said, you know what? It'd be a lot of fun if I could make some more money. So I started potting up the wild tiger lilies along the road and selling them for $1. I mean, man, I was making money. This is fantastic. Soon after that, we started selling sweet corn at the end of the road in the back of a truck. And ever since then, I've always loved to sell things. I've always loved to help people find value in things. So, that's a little bit about me as far as my background goes. Then I started, when I was about 18, I started a business with my brother and father. We called it Timber Rock. It was an outdoor living design build business. I did most of the design and managed clients and all those good things. And then from there, we had a great 15 years, and then I started Master Plan, which is my next venture, and it focused more on the design part of the outdoor living client experience. So we do design and management. We've been doing that now for about 8 years. So, the crazy part is what I've realized over these last few years is that, in the beginning and even up till like 2 years ago, I really sucked at selling. I really sucked at helping people buy what they wanted to buy. I read all the books, book after book, trying to figure out the best system for our business and the best way to help people get what they want. But even books and seminars and all these different events that I went to learn, it seemed like some of those things that I would bring back from those books or events, they would work for a while, and I'd have to kind of take them from where they were, maybe a different industry, and kind of bring them into mine and try it out and see if it worked, and then it would, and then it wouldn't. So I found that there was just too many things that just didn't work out, and I was just kind of figuring it out as I went, and I found that I was being told no more than yes. I had a lot of big ideas as a designer. I had a lot of big ideas. I don't know if you guys can relate, and sometimes the people just don't see the vision, or they don't see, what the space could be like. So, being told no for so long really put me in a position to try to figure out the best way to try to help people get what they want anyway, and that's really what sales is all about, is just helping them buy. So anyway, wanted to let you know, if you have any questions throughout this this event, you can easily just type it into the little widget on the side here, and you can send them over to me. I'll answer them as they come through, and yeah, we'll get started here. So The main thing we want to think about now is, we're in a strange economy, I guess we'll call it, where people don't know what's coming next from if they're allowed to get out of their house in a few weeks, if they're allowed to do anything, can construction workers even come to their house? Is this even a smart time to do anything? So, I'll be the first to tell you here that I'm not a teacher per trade, but I'm a business owner, just like a lot of you guys. And I've had to figure out a lot of this stuff on my own in order to keep the doors open and to keep people, excited and excited about what we do. So the first piece I want to talk to you about today is, top priority. So how many times have you had a phone call with a new client? They call your office and they say, you know what? I would love to have a deck, a pool, fire pit, roof system, lots of landscaping, tons of seasonal color. I want to have privacy. I want to have lighting. I want to have a diving board. I want to have this, that, and the other thing. There's 50 things on our list. And as designers, we're writing all this stuff down like, oh, this is great. These guys are going to want all of this stuff. And then after that call, we go out, we meet with the client, and we sit down with them, and we realize that they have an extremely long list. And we have no idea if they even have budget for this. We have no idea what is a high priority, what's a like to have, what's a romantic idea they might want to include. We have no idea what is a priority for these clients. So we're kind of stuck in the middle, just waiting for them to make a decision on what that actually means. So the way we work it here and the way we do our sales system is that we ask a question. So we ask it right in the beginning. After we built some rapport with them and talk to them and get on, an alignment with them, the next step is to get into saying something like, now I see you have a lot of really cool features that you want to add into your backyard. So if you had to pick your top priority or your top 3 priorities, what would they be? And that forces the client to focus. Focus is the key word here. To focus on what is the most important top 3 pieces for them. Those features, and you'd be amazed by what kind of response you get back from people. It is really incredible. So they may take that in gigantic list that they gave you. Now we ask for a questionnaire in the beginning, and that's where I get a lot of that information. It's all part of our process. But if they're spitballing ideas out, this works as well. But to get them to narrow down what they want into top 3. Now some people try to avoid that because they just can't focus. But if you can't get somebody to focus on that first phone call, there's a very high probability you're not going to get them to focus at that first meeting either. And you may or may not receive a design fee or deposit to move forward with that. And then at that point, you don't know what is the main focus or the main reason why they're doing this project. So again, nailing down those top 3 is going to be important. So once you have those 3, say, Mrs. Jones says, I want to have a deck, a patio, and beautiful landscaping around it. You say, okay, Mrs. Jones, I definitely understand those are awesome features. Now, if you had to pick your top priority for this project, what would it be? And she's going to think around and think about it and say, you know what? I really think that the patio is the most important part of this project for me. Bingo. Now as designers, we know where to focus. We know the deck is something that'd be nice to have, but it's not necessarily the highest priority for them. And the landscaping might be a phase 2. It's not that all these things can't be in the plan, but at least we have a very solid idea of what their absolute must is for this project, what must be done before anything else gets done. And those 50 other things that they want to add in, the fire pit, the fireplace, the pool, all the other pieces that they want, again, we can put them in the plan, but we know where to focus our attention. Super important, especially during these times, because people might be sitting around again at their house, looking outside saying, you know what, I'd really love to have all this stuff, but really have no idea have no idea how to communicate to you. So you have to be, in control without being controlling to your clients, so that they know that you're in charge, that you're doing a great job, and you can handle anything that they throw at you, but that you can do it in a very concise way that'll bring the best value and bring the best focus to the project. So that's my first piece here. Second one is a big one. Now, this is the one that most people, including myself, for 22 years, I struggle with this. It's budget. And I feel like getting a budget in the past, getting a budget from people was kind of like pulling teeth. Nobody wants to tell it to you. They think if you actually give them the budget, your designer the budget, that they're going to spend twice that. Or in some way, they're going to take advantage of you. So from our side, it's really tough as designers with tons of really cool ideas to get a sense of what the overall project can be. You know, I tell clients, look, if we don't have a budget going into this, my computer or my pencil has no heart. It'll spend every dollar you'll ever earn. But if we have a sense of what this project looks like for you from a budget side, whether it's in phases, you know, a budget per phase or a budget for the entire project, it's going to really help us nail down the overall scope and allow us as designers, as leaders, to guide them through this process. You know, we view this as a journey here at Yes Express. We see this as a journey that people are on. Most really don't have a great idea of what is really happening. What's the possibilities, like these kinds of things. So we are the professionals, and we're the ones that are being engaged by them to bring the options to the table and guide them through this entire process. So budget is a huge one. There are many ways to manage budget and to help people through budget, but the one way we found that is most that's worked the best in the past is something that goes like this. So after, and again, you have to, our process allows for a lot of other open-ended questions before this question. So I don't lead with this question. This is something you have to earn the right to ask. Again, part of the process, but we earn the right to ask this is toward the end of our call that we ask this question. So I say, and I keep it fun. You got to keep it fun because people, they're kind of bracing for this and they don't really want to give up a number, but if you keep it fun, they kind of let their guard down and it works every time. I have never had a client yet that wouldn't give me some number or some inkling of a space, of a framework, a range of number that they're thinking about for the project. So I can gauge ahead of time whether we are a good fit for that client, right? That's really the goal here. Because if they have a budget of $50,000 for a project and you know damn well you can't build that project for under 100, why are you even going on the call? Why are you even taking time out of your precious life to go and meet with this client if you know you can't serve them in your capacity, in your best capacity? So the call would go something like this. You know, I would say, now it's on to everybody's favorite topic. Can you guess what that is? And everybody chuckles and they say, yeah, money, budget, cost. And I say, yep, you guessed it. Now I got to tell you, the number one thing that drives the cost of your project is the things that you want for it, period. So again, you're taking the obligation of what it will cost for this project and you're handing it into the client. You're basically saying whatever you want is what it's going to cost. It's not, I'm not the one taking money out of your pocket. It's the things that you want that I'm designing that we can build for you. So it takes some of that liability, if you will, and moves it to the client side so they realize it. Again, it's the things that you want for this project, period. Now, in our questionnaire that we send out before this call, we ask budget ranges. We have 5 different levels, and those levels are ranges, right? Maybe 30 to 75, 75 to 150, whatever it might be. And we have cute little names for those little budget brackets. And what it is just to try to tickle that concept early on that we're going to be talking about budget early. And I would say about half of the clients actually fill in the number, that they select one of them. So if I do see that in the questionnaire as it comes back, you know, I'll say something like, I saw in the questionnaire that you said you were looking for a budget of around 30 to 75. That's good to know. But as designers, what does that mean? Is that for everything? Is that for one thing? Is that for a phase? What is it for? One feature? Are they going to be doing some of the work? Like, where are we with that? So we need to get deeper. And we get deeper by asking a question by, like, I see you have 30 to 75 listed on the questionnaire. What did you hope that that budget would cover? Let them talk. Just shut your mouth, let them talk. And they're going to talk and talk and talk. And then you can write all this stuff down because they're giving you information that is so vitally important to your next steps when you finally meet with them and to see if they are a good fit for you guys. Now, once that's done, and they say, well, we're hoping the 30 to 75 is going to cover it's going to cover the patio and some of the landscaping and maybe even the deck. You can start gauging whether that's really a big enough budget for it. Because if they have a low budget and have a big wish list, we need to correct them early on so we don't end up giving them the false hope of something that might be and lose them later. So at that point, if they had a long list or even a short list, and I would say that, what are you hoping that this would actually cover? They'll tell you what they think it is. And then you say, would you consider this a rigid or a flexible budget? And let them talk. What they're gonna do is think about, nope, sorry, 75 is the highest we can go on this project. We're only gonna be in this house another 6 years, and we wanna think about resale. So if we go over 75, there's no way. So if we could fit everything we want within $75,000, we'd be good to go. Imagine having that information before you actually meet them the first time. Imagine how you can gauge your conversation or think about solutions with them when you're at their dining room table. Having that knowledge in your back pocket, super important. Now, that's if clients want to give you a budget range. Imagine you send the questionnaire, they take a look at it, and they leave. We have a space, an option for people to say, you know what, I want to speak to my designer about what these things should cost. Again, should underline, should cost. Okay, so we get that questionnaire back and we have basically zero idea of what their budget is for the project. How do we handle that? Well, the way I like to handle is I say, look, I see in the questionnaire that you guys did not cover or did not give us an idea of what budget would look like for you guys. Do you have any sense of what that could be? Let them talk. Sometimes they'll give you ranges right then and there. Other times they will not. Other times they will stop and they will say, you know what? I don't have any idea of what this should cost. So this is where you can become the designer and the leader that you are in this relationship, you know, the guide, if you will, in this relationship. If you know they're looking for a patio, and you know most patios are about 600 square feet, whatever the number might be, you can have a little sheet, little cheat sheet next to you, and you can be like, you know what? The last project we did in a similar scale to yours would be probably between X and Y. Now, again, it really depends on all the features you want to add in there and all the functions you want to add in there, but this is a good starting point. How does that work for you? Shut up, be quiet, let them talk. So much information is going to be spilled right here. You just start writing a novel. Get all that information you need. At that point, there's one of two things that can happen. Either the client can say, you know what, we're going to talk it over, which is an objection. We're going to talk it over and get back to you. And at that point, you can ask questions like, okay, sounds good. Was there anything about what we talked about today that you didn't want? And let them talk. And you could also ask a question like, given the overall scope of this project, and I assume you're speaking to more than one person, is there any certain criteria you're looking for when hiring a person to do this project for you? Be quiet, let them talk. And you'd be amazed the stuff that comes out of their mouth. I gotta say, it fascinates me every single time. And I've turned projects around right then and there because of it, where people were gonna go off into, in a different direction, but they appreciate the candid, true talk, the hard talk, the rawness of these questions. It's really important. So anyway, that's how you could manage budget. Once you get a sense of that, again, at the end, you have a choice, either ask those questions and you say, look, don't come in needy. Don't ask like, well, all right, let's set this up for tomorrow. Let's sit down and talk and have them feel like you feel needy for the project. You've got to be more passive and be like, look, guys, you know where I'm at. You know what we're going to do. If this works for you, give me a call. And if it doesn't, I wish you the best on your own journey. And be done with it. That's the simplest way to do when it comes to budget, if they're going to go on their own. Now, if you get to a point where you know there's no way you can build this, you just got to give them what we call a graceful exit. So you just have to be able to say, look, guys, the project sounds awesome, but to be honest with you, we're not really a great fit for this. So we recommend that you would reach out to, and you can have a list of people that you work with, that you can say, look, these guys are better fitted for you. We're designers, and maybe all you need is a contractor to build you something because you already know what you want or whatever it might be. So you can give them a nice graceful exit, be the hero at that point, or be the guide for them to be the hero, to go find the right person. So that's how we typically manage budget. And I hope that you can find value in that and even implement some of those things into your business. It's been huge for us over here, and it's incredible how that works and what kind of conversations you have with people. Now, the next piece here I want to get into is the ideal client. So I don't know, there's a lot of people, I think it's a lot of companies don't really know who their ideal client is, or even how to figure out who their ideal client is. So I guess we should start with that first. The way to find your ideal client is to think about the top 3 people you've ever worked for. Put them in a box, if you will, and start thinking about what commonalities they have. Do they drive a certain car? Do they live in a certain area? Do they go to a certain golf club? Do they like certain hobbies? And start getting a thread, if you will, or a consistent thread of ideas or different things that lock them all together. So with that being the case, you start laying that out, pick your top 3 people and say, you know what, in a perfect world, I would love to serve people like that every single day. And if you say it and you start focusing on it and you start advertising and marketing to those people, understanding who they are, what they love, what their pain points are, what keeps them up at night, you're going to start finding you're going to get a lot more of those ideal clients and less of the ones that are the pain in the ass. The ones that are the pain in the ass from first phone call till the last check that you got to pry out of their hands. That's a way to get around that and to make it a lot easier for you to be happier and serving at the level you want to serve. So again, how do you know your ideal client? Is to find out, get your top 3, list them out, figure out what makes sense. And maybe you don't have all that information now, and that's fine. You can easily start doing that today. You can start thinking about how to, nail down your ideal client. Another big question is, are you more of a listener during your first phone call with your clients when they call into your office, or are you more of a talker? Do we feel like we need to fill space with noise and talk about ourselves and how great our business is, how effective our crews are, how we have top-notch, landscape design software, or old school, we still do it the way, they used to do it 100 years ago? Whatever it is for you, it is. But are you talking all about how you can benefit them without even knowing who they are and what they need? I know I used to be guilty of that. I used to be guilty of wanting to tell everybody about how cool we were, how great we were, how we could absolutely solve this problem for them, and how we are the best choice. But I found that it wasn't working as well as it should have. And I found that through sales training, proper sales training and coaching and mentoring, that we need to let our clients speak first. And we need to guide them and lead them through this process of asking deep questions that get to the core of why they're doing this project, what it means to them, and how long they've been struggling with wanting to solve this problem. We need to get them in an emotional state so they understand this project is emotional and that they're connecting to it. Because let's face it, guys, we can all live without patios. We can all live without landscaping. We can all live without decks and pools, but emotionally we want them. Our clients want them for emotional reasons. So we need to connect with them on emotion. So our process is focused on asking a lot of good questions, letting clients talk and talk and talk. And we are simply writing things down, leading them with great questions and writing things down. At a certain point in the process, we actually spin it around. When we've earned the right to speak to them, we speak about how we can benefit them, but from their perspective. Because everybody's thinking, what's in it for me? Right? You guys signed up for this webinar today and you're thinking in the back of your head, whether you realized it or not, what's in it for me? What am I going to get from spending 20 to 30 minutes with Josh here on a webinar? What am I going to get that I didn't have before this webinar started? What am I going to get? We all are doing that. That question goes through every single human's mind constantly. Whether you're picking a restaurant to go to and you're like, I want to go, I'm thinking Mexican tonight. Because what it means for you is that you're hungry for enchiladas. That's why you say that. It's all about what's in it for me, and not from a selfish part, but we're all thinking about how would we gain from this. So we have to understand that when we speak to our clients, that we speak to them in that sense, that we speak to them in a way that they feel like they're being understood, and that we are solving problems that they have but haven't voiced yet, that you are the answer for them. So again, once we understand who they are, we get into a deeper sense of what we do and how we can solve their problems, right? So it's really important to find out why this project is so important to your clients, because without that why, you really have no leverage. And don't take that as a bad word. It's not a bad word, but have leverage in understanding what is forcing them or pushing them through this project or through this process of reaching out to you, or why they want to do anything in their backyard. What are they gaining from this? What's in it for them? We need to be thinking from that side. So, I mean, if you think about, as far as back to the original concept here of, if you're not talking to your ideal client, but how to figure that out on the first phone call, it's by asking those deep questions. We've created a list of questions that 99% of the time rules out people that aren't going to be good fits for us right away through this process. And that's really the cool part about it. Asking those deep questions, then talking a little bit about yourself, and then getting into things like budget. And there's a couple of things like we like to call our $1 billion question, which is toward the end of our conversation, that really, if a client, a potential client or prospect, has gone through the system and they find you're not quite sure, there's one question you can ask them at the end that'll almost always bring out whether they're trying to just get you out for some free ideas, or whether they're actually interested in working with you and engaging your services at 100% of what you can do. So you can be that designer that you love to be, and if you build as well, that you can build that project and bring that whole concept to life. But there's nothing worse than going out and, after an hour or two of conversation with clients, that you find they're just using me for ideas. I mean, it's happened to me, and it feels horrible after I walk out. I'm like, all right, well, I gave them some ideas, but it's an hour and a half I could have been spending with a client that actually wanted to work with us, that loved what we do, that would actually pay us for what we'd be doing, that would help my soul come alive because I can really serve them at the highest level. So really having a system in place that helps weed those people out early on is going to be key. But again, if we can do that through good questions, letting them know a little bit about how we're different and how we benefit them directly from the what's in it for me perspective, ask them a couple of key questions about budget and getting into other pieces in order to know that we have about 90+% chance of closing this client once we meet them. That's huge. And that's what I've been struggling with and trying to find for the last 22 years, and finally have found that type of system. We've created it now. So that's really the cool part about it. So if you think of sales, it's more like dating. If you walk up to somebody and say, you know what, will you marry me? Right? Most are probably going to say no. There might be a couple of crazy ones, but most are going to say no. That's how we treat a lot of our clients in this industry. We walk up to them at the first meeting, we show up, we talk a little bit, and we say, all right, cool, let's get a project rolling. Doesn't work. We haven't been allowed to ask that question yet. We need to go through a certain psychological sequence in order to open their mind up to that option. We have to think of sales as more like dating. We have to start out by getting to know them a little bit, getting deep into the things that drive them, letting them know a little bit about you, figuring out some of the pain points they might have and how you can solve them. Now, again, it's not quite like dating, but you get a picture of where I'm going here. But we got to treat sales like dating, and then eventually, when it's the right time, we ask them to marry us, and that's when we get a yes. But you wouldn't do that in the first meeting. So super important. It's the biggest thing now is to make sure, especially in our economic times and where we are with the virus, is to understand that each call is important. I know you guys already know that. I'm preaching to the choir here. Each call is important. We want to make sure as leaders in our companies and in the industry that we aren't squandering them, that we aren't in some way running out to every single project just in order to say, oh, I got somebody calling. I feel like I have to run out to these projects because they called me, right? We don't want to have to feel that way. We want to make sure before we go out to those projects that we are 90% sure that we're going to be able to move these people through and that we're going to be able to help them at the highest level possible so that we can maximize our time. There's nothing worse than wasting time going out to talk to people that aren't buying. It's all that time that you're not spending in your office building your business or with family because you're going out on nights and weekends for chasing clients that really aren't interested, but they have given you a great story and you want to run out there because you feel the obligation. So I know I used to feel that way. I don't feel that way anymore because I know that I can handle and not even handle, I can serve people at a higher level if we're all on the same page. Hopefully that makes sense. That's really where I'm going with here. So, so in closing here, if you guys want some help with this, I'd be more than happy to help you with this. And the way we do this is we do it as an online course. So, in order to get onto the course, I have to make sure we're a good fit. So if you guys do find any value what we talked about today and you'd like to ask any more questions about what we could do in order to help you guys with your business to grow through these crazy times, not just survive, but thrive and go, bring your closing numbers up over 80–90%, we can do that. We can do that together. So what you can do is you can reach out, give you my number now if you'd like to. Reach out and call me. I'd love to talk about some of the details. Whether you do anything or not is up to you. My number here is 484-764-7198. Again, 484-764-7198. I'd love to open up a conversation, see if we can help you, make sure we're a good fit, and then we can go from there. Thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions, I'll take them now. If not, again, thanks again for watching. Diana reaches out. Thanks so much. Sounds a lot like some of our own process, but great to hear from others that others are doing it as well. Diana, yeah, I'm so glad you're on this process, because so many in our industry, they just don't get it. They just want to run out and try to get a check as fast as they can, and they're screwing themselves and they don't even realize it. So hats off to you guys for really nailing that down. It's really important. Becky writes, the concept of dating a client is at first is so novel. Great comparison. So yeah, I heard that, I read that in a book, and it was such an interesting concept, because we can understand that contrast, dating versus marrying, but translating it to business. But once you do, you start realizing that you need to really up your game when it comes to how you communicate with your clients, and think about those first dates and how you would never say this type of thing on a first date, but you'd want to guide a person in that way. So it's super important. But yeah, it's something that takes a little bit of practice, but everybody's capable of it for sure. Kevin writes, how many times do you follow up with new leads before moving on? So good question, Kevin. We normally, our process is that the first phone call comes into the office, and Becky takes the call. She has her her script that she goes through, and then the next step for them is to fill out a questionnaire. So she sends out what we call our welcome email. It goes out, a questionnaire goes to them. The next trigger point, or the next time that we communicate with them, is when they send that questionnaire back to us. Once they send that back to us, then that's our trigger for Becky to set up a call with me and the client. So again, if you're a one-man show, there's nothing wrong with that. You can easily do this on your own back and forth, but that questionnaire for us is so important, because it allows us to know that they're committed to the project. If you get a phone call and say, come out and give me a free estimate, which we've all heard that before, right? How committed do you think those clients are to any of the 5 people they're probably calling for that same project? You really have a tough time getting a leg up in that conversation. But when you put out a questionnaire, it puts a little bit of homework on their lap, a little bit of an obligation. So then you can call out the people who aren't just screwing around. There's a higher probability, if they're going to spend 15 to 20 minutes filling out a questionnaire, that they're actually going to call you and do something, or at least that they're focused on doing something that they're really intent on. So, so that's how that works. Once they come in and I talk to them, then we go through our process, and then from there, there's really no more follow-up. Becky sets up the call, I go out and meet with them. It's that simple. And at that point, we close. So, and then we bring them back and get started on the design. So I don't typically do a whole lot of follow-ups. If somebody, it does happen, some people don't sign up with us. And when that happens, I leave them with the same conversation each time. Guys, I'm not going to chase you around. You know what we have to offer here. I'm fully confident that we're going to be able to deliver what you've asked for and even more, but that's a decision that you have to make. We're here for any questions or any thoughts you have, and we'd love to start the journey with you, but you need to pick the best person that makes the most sense for you and your gut. So you have our information. We're here when you're ready. It's that simple. That's how we lead that conversation. I don't chase people around phone calls, because if they're not calling you, it's for a reason. It's not because they forgot. Kevin has another question here. Thanks. Would you be willing to share the questionnaire? We do have that as part of our process. We share the questionnaire that we have. If you decide you want to jump on board with us here with the online course, we're going to share all that with you. We're going to share what we have in place, and we can then fine tune it for your business exactly. Because not every single business in our industry is the same. We want to make sure that this entire system speaks to you and speaks to the way you do business, so that we make sure that we don't make people feel like you're talking someone else's words, if that makes sense. It has to be true to you. Cool. Any other questions out there, guys? All right, so Joe writes, discovering a budget early in the process is extremely important. As designers, it helps us deliver a project that can be built within their budget range. Absolutely, Joe, you're definitely right with that. The number one thing I dealt with in the past when I used to get all those no's was, how the hell am I gonna get yeses from these people? I have these big ideas, but how am I gonna make that work? And I don't know if you're like me, but in the beginning, it was a little weird asking for budgets up front. I'm like, man, if you ask them for that, it's kind of like asking them how much they weigh or something like that. I mean, you wouldn't normally do that. It's a bit awkward, but you'd be surprised how many people want that question to be asked because they don't understand. They don't know, and you're the guide to get them there. So having a conversation, becoming used to being awkward a bit in the beginning with that call, you're gonna have much better long-term success once you just face it and deal with it and just become comfortable being uncomfortable for a few times. After that, it becomes so simple. You're like, why didn't I do this forever? And people are not going to yell at you. They are not going to tell you, there's no way in hell I'm going to tell you that information because you're going to try to take every penny from me. They're going to be honest. If you're honest with them and you're in a position where you've created an environment where you can ask for that kind of information. Again, you can't ask for it in the beginning. You can't just say, hey, Mrs. Jones, what's your budget? That doesn't work. You have not been given the allowance to do that yet. You need to build into that. It's a slow process, but it gets you there through the process, and by the end, you'll be able to ask for that and get that back. Jeff writes, I just tuned in. Will there be a way to use this as a webinar again? Yes, Jeff. Actually, I'm going to be putting this up as a link, so you're going to be able to look at it on the YesExpress page and be able to see everything we talked about today. Kevin asks, do you have a minimum project threshold? Do you charge for quotes? Minimum project threshold, we don't necessarily have a minimum project threshold, but what we do have is an understanding that most people who are going to buy, we charge for our design work, right? So we don't do any free design work. We're designers that build, not builders trying to design. So we value the design very highly, and we only want to work with clients who value the concept of design as much as they would if they were building their house and paying their architect and these kinds of things. We think there's a tremendous value, and so do our clients. Again, our ideal clients. So minimum project threshold, we found about $20,000 to $30,000 tends to be the number that most people are thinking about when they're thinking about working with a designer first, and then into the build side of things. But so we typically target a 20,000 to 30,000 base, but we're here to help. If we can bring solutions to clients, we're pretty open to what that means. We just want to make sure that we can serve them at the highest level. And if a client comes to us and says, hey guys, we're looking to do a 10 by 20 deck, a 16 by 18 patio, and a 4-foot fire pit, whatever it might be, with that kind of conversation, do you really think they need a designer to figure that out? They already know what they want. They've given you dimensions. They've given you an exact list of what they want. So as a designer, you have the option to go out and talk to them if you want to, but for me, that's a red flag. I'm thinking, well, if they know that well what they want, they're calling 3 to 5 people and they're saying the same thing, and there's going to be somebody that's going to be like, yeah, I can give you exactly that. They're not asking you to be the designer that you were born to be. They're not asking you to solve their problems. They're telling you to solve only the build problem, not the design problem. So I'd be really cautious with that. But again, through the process, we can get that nailed down and figure out exactly what their intent is. That's the big part. Let's see here. And do we charge for quotes? We do not charge for quotes. Our quotes are complimentary when it comes down to the, when it comes down to the initial meeting, it's complimentary. Once the design, they pay us for our design, so that's all part of that. The quotes come from that design fee. That's all part of it. So we charge all that up front for the client. It's one shot in the beginning, and they pay us and we go on our merry way and we get everything done. That takes them all the way up to permits. So that's going to include final pricing, budget studies, all of that stuff. We don't charge for revisions. So once they pay us, we're in it for the long game with them, no matter how many revisions it takes. That's just how we roll over here. And we get the best response that way because we're trying to build a long-term relationship with clients, not just a quick, a quick transaction. Becky asks here, do you feel like your process has been successful in weeding out tire kickers? Do you have high success rates with people returning your questionnaire to start? That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's been very successful weeding out tire kickers. On the front lines when Becky makes the phone calls, she's equipped with the right questions and the right information in order to kind of feel a lot of that out on your own, right? One of the biggest fears we have as business owners is if somebody takes over that position of those first calls coming in, what happens if they don't get it right? I mean, are they going to be knocking a bunch of clients that could be potentially paying clients off the grid, like brooming them to the side? You know, how are we going to know that they're actually going to say the right thing at the right time? And that's what's so important. If you want to grow your business, you're going to need to have somebody else doing that as well. And if that being the case, you know, how do you do that and be comfortable knowing that it's done right? I mean, first of all, it's always, you know, getting the right person in the right position, somebody who loves to speak with people and somebody who is a problem solver. You know, I'm very blessed to have Becky and the team for that. So we've created a bit of a script and she runs through. It's nothing you have to memorize so much. It's more about understanding certain points you need to hit. And at that point, you can tell right away if the conversation starts to be more toward, I have the X by Y deck I need built, or X by Y patio, whatever it might be. So you can get a sense what that means early on. And if they seem all good, you send them to the questionnaire. And if they fill it out and bring it back, then in my opinion, it's worth a phone call. So then we sit down and make a phone call, and then I weed them out right then and there. So it really does help with the tire kickers. You know, we do broom a lot of people that come through because maybe they're not perfect for us. And it's not about trying to, you know, be better than anybody else. It's more about making sure that our time is preserved, because we know if we give it away for free, nobody values it. So we really have to make sure we're focusing so we can be growing our business and that we can be focused on really serving the awesome clients, those ideal clients, to the absolute highest level. And we can't do that if we're running around 50 different phone calls, 50 different meetings, all of this stuff, trying to serve everybody, and then you end up serving nobody. And do you have a high success rate with people returning your questionnaire? We do, actually. I'd say more than half the people actually return the questionnaire, and that's awesome, because the other half or less that didn't return it are people that I'm not wasting my time with. I'm not out there trying to sell them something, because let's face it, guys, you're not going to sell them anything if they don't want to buy it. And if they're just getting an idea because the husband says, I'd love to have a pool, and the wife doesn't really want one, and then all of a sudden he said, all right, honey, no big deal. I'm going to check out a couple of companies just to get a sense of what it looks like. And she's like, whatever, go ahead. She's not interested. If you don't have both, you know, purchasing people or both decision makers on board, you ain't selling nothing. At least that's my experience. So if they're not going to hand those things back in, there's a good chance there's something wrong at this point, maybe not forever, but at this point, that they aren't really willing to work forward or move forward at this point. So it's a great red flag. It's a great indicator of where they are in the process, because there's only a few % of people who are ready to buy right now. There's a much higher percentage of people who are doing research, that are trying to figure out what they're going to do. And then there's also another group of people who will probably never buy your services. So we got to make sure that we understand what group they're in, so that we can manage our time effectively and be able to serve people at the highest level. Let's see. Kyle Stevens says, I 100% agree. And yet, hold on a second here. That's awesome, Kyle. Yeah, no, it's good. I know you run a heck of a good business up there in New York State. And yeah, it's been crazy times now, but we all got to band together and be able to help each other through this. And if anything I say today, that even one piece that you can use it. Start today, implement it, reach out. I'd be glad to talk to you guys about these things. You know, it's important for us to all come together right now. Deanna asked, and yet those are the clients that need the how to make it come together. And that's exactly right, right? So they might understand why they want to do a project, but we're the ones that figure out how it all fits together. We're basically the puzzle makers, if you will, or the puzzle put togetherers. We're putting things together. We have to figure out all these pieces and features they want, and then put it together in a comprehensive plan, and then have to work with a budget on top of all that. Like, the stuff that we do as designers and as builders is insane. I mean, most people don't realize that, and that's why we charge a design fee. We don't do anything for free, because there's just so much that goes into it. And if the client doesn't see that value, we can't help them, because they're not going to see the value through the whole project either. So it's important to get those people out of the way right in the beginning, because they're just going to jump ship at some point anyway and go with a cheaper option, or go with somebody who just isn't a designer, but tries to be. And then they're not happy with the end result, and then they're calling you to fix it. And we've all had those calls, right? Let's see, Deanna also asked, just because they have a dimension doesn't mean they know the how to make it work for them. Let's see, they just ask for the what. They do know. They need help with the design the most. And that's exactly right. That's why they're calling us. That's why they call designers first. If they just wanted that 10 by 12 deck, they could have called any builder. They could have showed up and built them a deck. They would have been unhappy with it. And then they'd call us to tear it off and do it the right way. Because, you know, those builders aren't thinking like designers. They're not thinking about use and function. They're not thinking about the sun angles. They're not thinking about furniture. They're not thinking about all these things that we think about, balance and symmetry and all those things that designers bring to the table. We can't force everybody to want to work with us, but I tell you one thing, the ones that do, they see the value. We just have to always trust that. Kyle writes, I adapted many of these processes within my company about 10 years ago. I take it one step further yet and only meet with clients during business hours. That's a big one, Kyle. We've also instituted that, and it's typically till 5, 6 o'clock at night, and there's never a weekend. I will not take a weekend appointment. That's the time with my family and the time for me to recharge. So there's no way that's happening for us. There's no way I'm doing those types of things. So if a client can't meet you between, say, 8 and 5 or 6 during a work week, don't worry about them, because if they're that busy that they can't possibly talk to you during those times, they're not going to end up being a client anyway. That's what we found. They just don't become clients because they're too self-important. They can't find time. If they can't find an hour out of their week in the next 4 weeks to sit down with you, run. That's my experience. Kyle also says, we sell creative solutions, not inside the box spaces. That's absolutely it, dude. Every single one of these projects is custom. That's what makes us designers, right? It's the challenge. It's the coming up with solutions to problems that in certain ways that are so creative that we can put our stamp on it, that we can be proud of what we're doing, and that we can love the design as much as the final build, as much as the clients do. When they're having parties and sending us pictures on social media, we can just sit back and smile and say, you know what? That was really cool. That's what we do it for. That's what I do it for. I do it for the love of people's lives being changed, and to have them connecting better and sitting around that fire pit, roasting s'mores, telling stories, creating environments and memories that they would never have otherwise. So that's my calling, and that's why I'm here and why I love this industry so much, why I love to design. And you guys are, you guys are awesome for what you do. So any other questions out there? Going once, going twice? Okay, everyone, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. If there's anything you need, just give me a call. You can also reach out in the Yes Express page, and we can chat. I'd be happy to help you out. Thank you. Peace out.